It's anything but a routine question.
How scared are you of possibly being executed?
But it's relevant, because the man I'm talking to, Troy Davis, may soon be a dead man. A jury only took a few hours to decide he was guilty of murdering a police officer in Savannah, Georgia. A few more hours to decide to send him to death row. Brenda Forrest was one of the jurors.
He was definitely guilty. All of the witnesses, they were able to, to ID him as the person who actually did it.
The primary reason he was convicted, the witness testimony. The slain police officer's wife agrees.
They were just so adamant about what they saw, when they saw it.
But this is how the juror feels now.
If I knew then what I know now, Troy Davis would not be on death row. The verdict would be not guilty.
What she knows now is this. Almost all of the prosecution's star witnesses have changed their stories. Some saying police pressured them to say Troy Davis did it. Daryl Collins is one of the prosecution witnesses who signed a police statement implicating Troy Davis.
And I told them over and over that I didn't see this happen. They put what they wanted to put in that statement.
20 years ago this summer, Savannah police officer Mark McPhail was working an off-duty job here. He was providing security at night for this bus station and for this Burger King restaurant that is currently out of business. There was a homeless man in this parking lot who was being harassed and intimidated. He yelled for help. The officer ran over, and seconds later, Officer Mark McPhail was shot and killed. It was tragic, horrifying, and chaotic. And 2 decades later, it all still is.
The man who admitted to harassing the homeless person went to police the next day and told them he saw Troy Davis shoot the officer. Wanted posters went up all over Savannah. A reward offered to catch the so-called dangerous cop killer. Racial tensions inflamed. After the shooting, Troy Davis was in Atlanta 4 hours away. His sister says scared for his life.
So when my brother decided to turn himself in, they already had a shoot-to-kill order on him.
This man, Derek Johnson, a pastor, got in touch with Davis. He volunteered to pick him up and drive him back to Savannah to surrender. He says Troy Davis insisted he was innocent. The pastor, who has never told his story to a reporter before, was stunned the DA's office never interviewed him.
You're with this man for 4 hours. You're bringing him back to Savannah to police custody. They never interviewed you?
Never talked to me.
Never asked you a question about your journey?
Never.
What he said, if he had a weapon, if
Nothing.
he admitted to the crime, if he didn't admit to the crime?
Nothing. And this is the one case where nobody wanted to know. And I don't think now, looking back, that anybody cared.
The pastor is one of many who now believe, facts be damned, Troy Davis was going to be arrested for murder. As for the Savannah police, they have always said their witness interviews were taken properly, no coercion, and prosecutors have stood by the conviction. But a number of witnesses have signed affidavits changing their original testimony. Dorothy Farrell is one of them, a former prison inmate. She writes, "I was scared that if I didn't cooperate with the detective, then he might find a way to have me locked up again. So I told the detective that Troy Davis was the shooter, even though the truth was that I didn't see who shot the officer." And a witness named Jeffrey Sapp now writes, "The police came and talked to me and put a lot of pressure on me to say Troy did this. They made it clear that the only way they would leave me alone is if I told them what they wanted to hear." And then there's this woman who says she purposely left out testimony.
Sylvester Coles
Yes.
came up to you after the shooting and said, "Will you hold my gun?"
Will I hold my? Yes, sir.
Sylvester Coles. He's the man who admitted harassing the homeless person, the man who fingered Troy Davis. We talked to Tanya Johnson near her old home across the street from the crime scene.
And he opened the screen door.
This screen door here?
This screen door, which this was not here. It was just like wood. It was a wooden screen door. This was tore out. He opened the door, set the guns here, and shut the door back.
And did you think he did the shooting?
Yes, sir.
Did you ask him?
No, but the
come?
way he was acting, I was scared.
You were scared to ask him?
Yeah, I was scared. I was scared of him. Still scared of him now, but.
Today you're scared of him?
Yes, sir.
He's still here in town?
Yes, sir.
Free man?
Yes, sir.
Do you see him occasionally?
I see him.
And you're scared of him?
Yes, sir.
How come you're talking to me? I admire the fact that you are.
Because I don't want to see this innocent man get killed for something he didn't even do.
During the trial, Davis's attorneys tried to convince jurors Coles was the killer. We tried to find Sylvester "Red" Coles to give him a chance to have his say. We talked to family members but couldn't track him down.
I don't believe that Red Coles is the one that killed Mark at all.
Officer McPhail's wife, Joan, who had a 2-year-old daughter and a newborn son when her husband was killed, looks at Sylvester "Red" Coles in a very different light.
Sylvester came forward, and he didn't have to. I also know that Troy ran, and he didn't have to. If he were innocent, he should have come forward.
And what does she think about people like Tanya Johnson, with her new information.
5 minutes of fame.
Pope Benedict has asked for Davis's sentence to be commuted. Jimmy Carter and even death penalty supporter and former Georgia Congressman Bob Barr have asked for the case to be reopened. Troy Davis has been hours away from execution 3 times, only to have the case reviewed. It has now reached the U.S. Supreme Court. If the justices decide to not review the case, Troy Davis could go to the death chamber within days.
Right.
But remember when I asked him if he thought he would be executed? Troy Davis said no. He told me he has faith in the justice system, a view that ironically is shared by the widow of the murdered police officer.
We believe in this justice system. We have to believe in this justice system.
But she is still waiting for an execution. Gary Tuckman, CNN, Savannah, Georgia.